It was well after sunset when I arrived in the village of Nadiya, deep in the heart of West Bengal. The road had been long, winding through dense forests, and the atmosphere felt heavy, almost suffocating. A strange stillness hung in the air, as if the very earth was holding its breath. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. No bustling sounds of life, no children playing, no animals in the distance. Only the faint rustling of the leaves in the trees and the occasional call of a distant bird, like a lonely cry in the dark. It was too quiet for my comfort. I'm Ashalata, a journalist from Kolkata, and I've traveled far and wide for stories. But this place, this village, it felt different. There was something off about it, something I couldn't shake. And it wasn't just the silence. No, it was something deeper, something the locals were too afraid to talk about. I'd come to investigate a mysterious disappearance that had the whole village in a grip of fear. A woman, an herbal healer from what I gathered, had vanished without a trace. No one had seen her leave. No one knew what happened. They said she'd gone into the forest near an old temple, and that was the last time anyone had seen her. My heart raced with excitement and curiosity. This was a story I had to uncover. But as I stepped off the bus and onto the dirt road, I couldn't ignore the feeling creeping over me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My instincts told me something wasn't right. I made my way through the village, the eyes of the villagers following me. They watched me with a strange mixture of suspicion and fear, as if I were an outsider who didn't belong. Their glances were sharp, piercing. I felt out of place, almost like an intruder. When I approached the small inn, I was greeted by a man named Shankar. He was in his late 40s, rough around the edges, with deep lines etched into his face. His eyes, though, were the most unsettling, wide and almost paranoid. He was hesitant when he spoke to me, his voice low and cautious. "You should be careful here," he said, his tone unusually serious for someone offering a room. "There are things in this village. People don't always leave. The forest, it doesn't let go easily." I laughed, but it felt hollow. "You mean to tell me you believe in ghosts?" Shankar's gaze hardened. "The forest takes, it's always taken, and the woman you're looking for, she's not the first." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I don't know if you're ready to hear the truth, but if you must know, she was the third woman to disappear in the past 5 years. All went into the forest. All vanished." My curiosity deepened. What happened to them? What did they find out there? Shankar paused, his eyes darting toward the trees, as if they were watching him. "That's the thing, madam. No one knows, but they say the forest holds something evil." I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine, but I tried to dismiss it. Shankar's words seemed like old superstitions, tales spun to keep the children entertained at night. There was no way anything in this modern world could be supernatural. I was here for the facts, for the real story. I needed to find out what happened to that woman. But as the evening descended and the mist began to creep in from the forest, I found myself questioning everything. The village was too quiet, the air too heavy with secrets. That night, I couldn't sleep. The walls of my room felt like they were closing in on me. The silence in the village was overwhelming, almost as if it were watching me. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A hard, urgent rap that startled me out of my thoughts. My heart raced as I stood up and opened the door. There, standing in the dim light, was Shankar. His face was pale, his eyes wide, filled with terror. "You need to come with me," he said, his voice shaky. "It's happened again." I didn't have time to question him before he grabbed my wrist and tugged me into the night. My feet stumbled behind him as we rushed through the dark streets of the village. The air was cold, and I could hear nothing but the pounding of my heart in my ears and the quickened breath of Shankar. "What's going on?" I asked, but Shankar didn't answer. His face was tense, his steps quick and urgent. We reached the edge of the village where the forest loomed. The trees were dark shapes in the night, their gnarled branches twisting like claws. The forest was silent, almost suffocating. No wind, no animals, just the eerie quiet that seemed to vibrate in the air. "Where are we going?" I asked again, more forcefully this time. "The temple," Shankar said. His voice was tight with fear. It's happening again. The same thing as before. She's there." I could feel my pulse pounding in my neck as we entered the forest. My mind raced. What was he talking about? Who was she? And what was happening at the temple? We walked for what felt like hours, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Every step felt heavier, the air growing colder and more oppressive. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees whispering in the wind, though there was no wind. Finally, we reached the clearing, and there, standing like a ghost from another time, was the temple. It wasn't much to look at, just a crumbling structure made of ancient stone, overgrown with moss and vines. But as I looked at it, I felt a strange, uneasy pull in my chest. There was something wrong about it, something dark. "This is where she went," Shankar whispered. "The healer, the woman you were looking for." I stepped closer to the temple, my feet slow, hesitant. Inside, the air smelled foul, stale and thick, like rot. I could barely see, but the faint light from my flashlight illuminated the walls of the temple, revealing strange symbols carved into the stone. They looked like nothing I had ever seen before, twisting shapes that made no sense. "What is this?" I whispered, feeling my breath catch in my throat. "She tried to unlock it," Shankar said, his voice shaking. "She thought she could control it. But no one can control what's inside, not even her." I didn't understand. "Control what?" But before he could answer, I heard something. A sound, low and guttural, coming from the darkness beyond the temple. A whisper. A voice. "Help me." I froze. The voice, it was a woman's voice. The same voice from the rumors, the voice of the missing woman. I stepped forward, my legs trembling beneath me, as if some unseen force was pulling me into the darkness. "Hello?" I called out softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is anyone there?" The voice came again, closer this time. "Help me." I was about to move forward when I felt something cold brush against my skin. My heart lurched, and I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the forest, the trees, the moonlight filtering through the canopy, casting eerie shadows on the ground. Shankar grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "We need to leave, now!" But it was too late. Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled. The trees groaned, their branches twisting unnaturally. And then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was her, the woman who had disappeared. Her skin was pale, stretched tight over her bones. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and empty. Her mouth hung open, as if she were trying to speak, but no sound came out. She moved toward me, her feet dragging across the ground, her arms reaching for me. "No," I whispered, my voice shaking with fear. "No, no, no." But the woman reached out, her cold fingers brushing against my face. I could feel them, cold like death itself. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered in a voice that wasn't hers. "The forest. It takes." I screamed, but my voice was drowned out by the sudden roar of wind. The trees around us began to bend and sway, as though the forest itself was alive. Shankar pulled me away, dragging me back toward the village. We ran as fast as we could, but the whispers followed us. The woman's cold fingers seemed to be reaching out from the darkness, pulling us back into the forest. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the village, breathless, our hearts racing in our chests. I couldn't speak. I could only stare at Shankar, my mind spinning, trying to process what had just happened. Shankar was on his knees, gasping for breath. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. "It's too late," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "She's part of it now, and so are you." I didn't understand. "What do you mean? Who was she?" Shankar's eyes flicked toward the forest. "The forest doesn't let go. Once you enter, you belong to it." I tried to ignore his words, tried to dismiss them as nothing more than fear and superstition. But deep down, I knew something had changed. Something inside me had shifted. The village of Nadiya, the forest, the temple, they were all bound together, tied to an ancient force that none of us understood. And as I looked back toward the temple, I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was still watching me, waiting for me to return.